My gosh.
Oh, hamstring. Up. Sniper, take the other picture.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you can formulate opinions without having true facts.
I'm telling you, think about it logically for just a second.
Dear Reds fans, welcome back to the Zebra Zillionaires. It was a tough one yesterday.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning. A pleasant, good post-Halloween Wednesday morning. We welcome you to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman. Gentlemen, good morning. Casey, Trace, how we looking over there?
Great. Looking great, Tom.
Everybody all right?
Yeah.
Did you have another party last night?
No.
Halloween party?
You would have been invited.
Trace, you were out trick-or-treating last night, right?
Terrible.
Chilly out there.
Why was
Halloween,
it terrible?
It was very
Halloween
cold.
is bottom of the barrel holidays.
Why? Kids love it. Candy? Costumes?
Just because kids love
you
something
sound
means
like Scrooge as it applies to Halloween.
No, Christmas is a fantastic holiday. Halloween, opposite of that.
Gentlemen?
It seems like Trace isn't fun, is what it seems
Yeah,
like.
it does
Because
seem like
Halloween is a very fun holiday, and it's whimsical, all the things you enjoy about a good day. It was cold yesterday, Tom. It snowed a little bit, but you know what? It was still pass out candy.
Were you at home passing out candy?
I was at my in-laws' house. They live right down the street. We were passing out candy. Yeah.
Okay. Elliot, were you passing out candy or passing out betting tips? Or
Yeah, you come to my house to get a free $10 wager.
So
No,
here you go, little Johnny.
here you
That'd
go.
be a good idea for next year.
It may be. Maybe. I'm very fortunate to live in a secluded little area, so nobody comes up to our house. So we were good. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, you can sneak off into that hot tub back there.
That's
and
right.
Nobody's around.
That's right.
Sing Dreamweaver. Have we run that in a while?
I don't know if we have to.
I don't know if we have, Tom.
I feel like you should make rankings at the end of the show of your best holidays because Halloween just is a preposterous. It's a holiday. It's a preposterous
Better than
holiday.
Arbor Day.
It's better than the 4th of July.
That's ridiculous.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, what a
That's
non-patriot that
a good
is.
question. That's a good question. Maybe open that up to our chat today. 4th of July or Halloween? Which one do you like better?
Seems like a good chat question.
That is.
Resounding for Halloween on that one.
Boy, we're off and running here today. We come your way Monday through Friday, 10
Hey.
to 12
PM.
You can find us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports, and we are even broadcasting live on a daily basis, are we not, Mr. McAllister, on Twitter?
That's correct.
Holy Moses. Okay. And what is our Twitter address?
Seabox Sports. At Seabox Sports.
At Seabox Sports. We got to make sure that's up.
X.
It is up at Seabox Sports. Okay. If you'd rather join us in podcast form, I know you do by the thousands and growing daily, weekly, monthly. Just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman and you're dialed in. Well, look, we asked a question yesterday, right? Will they or won't they? Would the Bengals make a trade before yesterday's 4 p.m. deadline? The answer, as we suspected it would be, was no. They did not. And that's pretty much been the MO for this franchise through the years. The Bengals are back at it today, getting ready for Sunday night's big one at home against the Buffalo Bills. That kickoff is 8:20 Eastern Time. The game can be seen locally, Channel 5 NBC. Another contender, in fact, the Bengals' most recent opponent, the San Francisco 49ers, pulled off unquestionably the biggest deal yesterday, acquiring defensive end Chase Young from the Washington Commanders for a 3rd-round pick. Now, keep in mind here, okay, if you read the fine print, that due to compensation picks from losing D'Amico Ryans, from losing a free agent player, Mike McGlinchey, the Niners have 2 other 3rd-round picks in next year's NFL draft. So they just traded one of them. Young has 5 sacks through 7 games so far this year. He's come all the way back from a devastating knee injury in his rookie year with Washington. After losing Kirk Cousins to an Achilles tendon injury, the Minnesota Vikings, well, they went out there and got their guy. They traded for Arizona, recently benched Arizona quarterback Joshua Dobbs. Now, apparently they're going to bring him in, let him start getting acclimated to everything, Rookie Jaron Hall is going to start for Minnesota, who is very much in the hunt. They're in the hunt. They've won 2 in a row. They're playing well.
They've won 4 out of their last 5. Listen, Tom, this was a very strategic attack on the NFL. Listen, you know the NFC Championship game is going to be the Vikings versus the Cowboys. Who has the recipe to beat the Cowboys better than Joshua Dobbs? Did it with Arizona earlier this year.
Yes.
Very strategic over there in Minnesota. They're smart.
That's creative. I give it up to you. Very creative. Head coach Josh McDaniels and general manager Dave Ziegler were fired last night by the Raiders. The move comes one day after a dismal 26-14 loss at Detroit on Monday night. Now, remember, McDaniels took over that team in 2021 that made the playoffs. Remember, Bengals beat them here. But instead, the Raiders have taken a major step backwards. They've gone 9-16 over the last 2 seasons. Linebackers coach Antonio Pierce will take over on an interim basis. Champ Kelly, the interim GM. The Raiders will host the New York Football Giants on Sunday. The first college football playoff rankings were unveiled last night. As we suspected, Ohio State is number 1. That's after a pair of top 10 wins so far this season against Notre Dame and Penn State. Georgia number 2, followed by Michigan and Florida State. Unbeaten Washington number 5. Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss round out the top 10. Ohio State got bad news on the injury front. They have been banged up at the running back position all year long, and it's not getting any better. As former Winton Woods star running back Mayan Williams will miss the remainder of this season following knee surgery yesterday. This Michigan thing, I mean, it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And where this is going to end, I don't think anybody has any idea. I reference The Athletic a lot. We'll talk about this in a minute. I bring up The Athletic, and I'm a paying member. I'm not getting anything from them. But they're able to write articles where they're not limited by space. And they did an article over the last number of days that went to 12 different either head coaches, assistant coaches, or staff members of every single conference there is in college football on the condition of anonymity, and ask them how serious this story is. And without a doubt, the most serious story there has been in college football in decades. And every day there's something new. Central Michigan University is now investigating a photograph of a man resembling the Michigan staffer in the middle of all this, Connor Stalions. Now, you're not going to believe this. And this hasn't been confirmed that it's him yet. So we say that with some pause, okay? But that Stalions was on the Central Michigan sideline playing Michigan the season opener back in September. The man in question, and you can see the photographs, it's all over the internet, is wearing a Central Michigan issued gear outfit, hat, sweatshirt, and he's standing not more than 20 feet from the Central Michigan head coach. They've gone back and looked through all of the credentials. Who got sideline passes? Who got coaches' box passes? And they cannot figure this out. Again, we're waiting to find out where all this goes. We'll talk more about it in a little while and ask the question simply as this. And this is something for everybody in here to think about. Most people believe the NCAA, which moves at roughly the speed of a glacier, will not address this or be concluded with its investigation before the end of this season, which means it would not hand down some kind of punishment to affect Michigan this year from playing in the Big Ten championship game, potentially back to the college football playoff for what would be a 3rd year in a row, or even a national championship game, which they have not played for since the beginning of time, it seems like. But if you punish them, is it fair to the kids? Right? Or if the kids took advantage of this information, which was gained illegally and against all the rules, there's no debate about that, are they complicit in this whole thing by taking advantage of the sign stealing? Many people feel the Big Ten ultimately And the brand new commissioner, former CBS sports head, Tony Petitti, is going to have to be the guy that's got to make some kind of call. Because apparently all of the other coaches in the Big Ten are livid. And they've known about it for a while. And Kevin Warren, the former commissioner, didn't do anything about it. So where does this all lead? Then there's Colorado coach Deion Sanders. He is called on the NCAA and or the Rose Bowl. Did you see this story? To reimburse his players who were robbed of jewelry, cash, and other items in their locker room during their game last week at UCLA. Now, Bruins officials have confirmed the robbery. In fact, they filed a police report with the Pasadena PD. Baseball, Rangers star Adolis Garcia learned yesterday afternoon before Game 4 of the World Series that his injured oblique from Game 3 was going to keep him from playing again the rest of this postseason. And it's a shame because he's been their best player, him and Seager. They've got all the big hits. With that in mind, he delivered a passionate pregame speech to his teammates, urging them keep grinding it out, and boy, did they take that advice. How about a bullpen game from the Diamondbacks in Game 4 of the World Series? We'll talk more about that in a minute. The Rangers got out to a 10-0 lead over 5 relievers in the first 3 innings en route to an 11-7 win. Texas now leads the series 3-1. Chance to wrap it up tonight in Phoenix. Nathan Eovaldi for the Rangers. Zach Gallen on the mound for the Battling D-backs. So that is that. Let's start with the Bengals. I don't think anybody in this room is surprised they did not make a deal. Are you disappointed they did not make a deal? I always start on Bengals talk with you, Casey, because you are Mr. Bengal.
Tom, I'm always going to be disappointed when our team doesn't do a trade to try to win. I know that they won't. It's not their MO. It's not something that I should expect. But I always get a little disappointed because I just want them to do something different that shows that they are all the way committed to winning, or that they're all the way turned around to being an average franchise. They're not your normal franchise. So, and you look at the trades that happened at the deadline. I said my number one pick was a guard, left guard specifically, and one of the best left guards got traded for a 6th-round pick to the Jaguars, a contender in the AFC. That was really disappointing. People said Chase Young for a 3rd. It's a little – it's right there. That 3rd-round pick is right there for me to where, maybe I'd go all in on that. But I don't know. I was disappointed. I'll just put it at that. I was disappointed. I thought that the Bengals could have made something happen, especially when some of those teams are on a fire sale right now, like the Commanders. You could get Logan Thomas, probably their tight end, for like a 7th-rounder. That just didn't happen. They didn't make a phone call.
So is it safe to say, if I hear you right, that you are disappointed that they didn't make a trade?
Yes, but it's not like I'm upset with them. I'm always going to be a little disappointed when the Bengals don't make a trade at the trade deadline.
He's not mad. He's disappointed, Tom.
He's just disappointed.
You ever use that one on your kids?
I have. That's a good one. That hits in the heart.
It hits in the heart, and that's what Casey's trying to send a message to the Bengals. To be disappointed, Tom, you have to have expectations. And if you had expectations that the Bengals were going to make a trade here, then I don't know what to tell you. It's like we sat all day talking about it, but it was more like talking about what you're going to do when you win the lottery, right? You got a lottery ticket, and you're like, what am I going to do when I win this $1 million? That's what it felt like yesterday, because we all knew it. All 5 of us in this room knew that the Bengals weren't going to make a trade. That a billion things could have happened in the NFL, and the very last one was that the Bengals were going to make.
See, I thought they were trade this time. I don't know. Something just told me that. Obviously, it was wrong, like most of the other stuff that I think about. But something just told me this year felt different. Not for you, though.
No, not at all, Tom. And everyone keeps poking at these trades that were made in the NFL yesterday. The one that everyone brings up is Chase Young. You guys know my opinion. I thought that trading for a pass rusher didn't make a whole lot of sense for the Bengals, and I don't think that they ever even considered going after a pass rusher. If they were going to go after somebody who was coming from a place of need, apparently there was rumors that they kicked the tires on some tight ends, but nothing was really available. Casey brings up a good point. The left guard trade for a 6th-round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would do that in a heartbeat. Because we know Cordell Volson's had some struggles this year. I'm not out on Cordell Volson, but
He's
currently
great depth then at that point, right?
What?
He's great depth then.
Right. But to think that the Bengals were actually going to make a trade just seemed fruitless, like a fruitless thought experiment.
Yeah, the offensive line thing, I never thought they were going to get another offensive lineman. I thought that when they released La'el Collins for no reason. So it seemed to me
him for millions of dollars, but yeah.
Yeah, but that was additional depth they had, and they released them. Right? Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right.
Because it seems
right.
to me if they cared about the offensive line getting additional depth, they would have kept the depth they already had. They released him. He was getting paid a lot of money, but that's beside the point. When you have the depth, you keep the depth. That's just my thought. The tight end thing, yeah, I would have liked the tight end, but at the end of the day, it's probably not going to help. Reed's been boosting this point since the beginning of the month, and it's or last month, I guess, and it's November now. So it's they were never going to get a tight end to fix that. What's his name? Hayden Hurst. The best Hayden Hurst game he was ever going to have is like 5 catches, 45 yards. So even as much as we're missing a tight end, it's not like the end of the world if you don't have one. And then the only other thing I disagree, the Chase Young thing for a 3rd rounder, I don't know why the Bengals didn't put their name in that ring, because that seems like a trade that I would have made. That was the only one to me where letting the 49ers get him for a 3rd rounder, nonsense. So if I was the Bengals, I would have chipped in there.
How do you feel if you're the Bears and the Bears traded for Montez Sweat for like the 35th, likely like the 35th overall pick, because an early 2nd round pick is what they're going to trade. Meanwhile, the 49ers give a 3rd round pick, which is likely going to be at the end of the 3rd round because the 49ers are good. You said they have 3 different picks. I don't know which one they traded. But, I mean, you got to – what are you thinking if you're over there in Chicago and they got Chase Young for the 80th overall pick and you got Montez Sweat for the 35th overall pick? Like, that's – you got
Well, if
swindled
I'm
there,
not
but-
mistaken here, I think that Sweat is on a multi-year contract.
Okay.
And Chase Young will be a free agent at the end of the year because the Commanders, after he went through the injury and the rehab, got re-injured again, they decided not to pick up his 5th-year option.
That's correct.
And this is one of the things that you can do if you're an NFL team that has a quarterback on a rookie contract. The amount of space you have to spend on other places is mind-boggling. I mean, just think of the difference between paying a guy, let's just call it $1 million, whatever the league minimum is now. What is a league minimum in the NFL now?
I think it's $870.
Okay, all right, call it, maybe they're giving, let's just say they're giving him $1 million,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Bengals, go right on down the line, the Chargers. All these teams, the Eagles, all these teams are spending $25, $30, $35, $40 million a year on a quarterback. Think of that difference and what it allows you to do. That's why the Niners, along with the fact that when they lost D'Amico Ryans, they got a compensation pick from Houston in the 3rd round. When they lost McGlinchey, the offensive lineman, they got a compensation pick for him in the 3rd round. So they had 3 third-round picks. So this isn't like a big deal at all for them. It's next to nothing. And if Young does great for you, you're still going to have a pile of money if you want to pay him at the end of the year. They've already signed Bosa, right? You could pay him at the end of the year, give him a new contract if he plays great for you. If you don't, you're none the worse for wear. He walks out the door at the end of the season. Guy's got 5 sacks in 7 games. Trace, this is what we talked about.
Sweat's in the last year of his contract.
He isn't, okay.
27 years old.
Okay, all right.
And
But we talk about it all the time. And we had Tim McGee that was on here. He's going to be coming back regularly again here soon. He just went through a couple of back surgeries. About how it boils down to probably a handful, if not fewer than that, number of plays that are the difference between getting to the Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl. Chase Young for a 3rd-round pick. Does the possibility exist? And we'll find out if it happens. But if you were a betting man, and Elliot, you are, but Trace, if you were a betting man, and you are, would you think there's a good chance Chase Young can make 4 or 5 plays for you over the rest of this season that maybe get you to a Super Bowl?
I think that's such a tough thing to forecast.
No, but I'm saying a chance.
Yeah, of course there's always a chance, Tom. There's a chance of anything. But I would just say that the thing that I find funny with all of this that you just never really know. Irv Smith Jr., everyone wants to get rid of the guy, and you've obviously been on the bandwagon and seen it through. He kind of reminds me a little bit of a weird way. I always harken back to comparing things to the Reds, but Irv Smith reminds me a little bit of Luke Weaver. It's like he's
Luke Weaver.
I'm just saying, there's something there in Irv Smith that you could at least admit that he's going to be a little bit better than what he's been. But at the same time, what he's doing on the field is what he's doing on the field. It's hard to really sit there and continue to justify that you keep this guy around. I just think that it's possible, Tom, that Chase Young has a huge penalty for the 49ers that ends their season, and Irv Smith catches a pass in the AFC Championship game that somehow gets him to the Super Bowl. And that's how sports goes.
That's right.
So it's just my point to all of this is you just don't really know. But to be fair about the whole circumstance and what we're kind of speculating here on is, of course you'd like to think that Chase Young would help the Bengals get to a Super Bowl if they had him versus didn't have him. The only thing that I would argue, the biggest arguing point would be if Trey Hendrickson goes down or if Sam Hubbard goes down, then that's the depth piece that allows you to continue to not really drop off. That may be the best argument. I don't know if the argument to me would be, hey, on a crucial third down, Chase Young is going to be the guy that makes the play that's going to get us to the Super Bowl. Because I don't know, and maybe I'm completely wrong here, I don't know enough about the Bengals roster to know, is Chase Young even going to be in the game if everybody's healthy on a big down?
And I didn't mean to pose it that the Bengals should have gotten Chase Young. I'm not saying that at all. I'm talking about in the areas where we're looking at where they're short. So, again, I don't know what tire. You mentioned they kicked the tires allegedly on some guys. I don't know who those.
That's what I've read.
Okay, all right. I don't know who those guys are, and we're never going to find out who those guys are. Probably, we're not going to find out. Gesicki or somebody else. Hurst again. Who knows? But now they have a decision to make, where there are some that believe in the next day or two, Irv Smith is just going to be cut loose. Because you can only use so many more activations for Tanner Hudson, who they're very high on. They like the guy. And you can only bring him up off the practice squad X number of times before you either put him on the permanent roster or you lose him. Is Tanner Hudson your answer at tight end? Casey McAllister?
I think
Does that make you better?
I think it.
Does cutting Irv Smith make you better? Why not stay with the guy for a couple of more weeks?
We're already past that point of doing this evaluation of Irv Smith. I mean, we're going into week 8, 9. We're almost halfway through the season, Tom. At that point, you just got to move on. And for me, Tanner Hudson provides one thing that Irv Smith doesn't, and that's being able to do both things efficiently, being able to run a route and block. And you don't have to just game plan for the receiving end on Irv Smith. On defense, teams just look at him as a pass catcher. They don't look at him as some dominant blocker off the end of the line. They don't look at him as some sort of even like a chip piece. He's just not good enough at that to justify him being out there every single snap. Whereas Wilcox or Hudson, when they're out there, they can block or go catch a pass for you.
All right, now this is breaking news. Apparently the Bengals have just added Hudson, to their 53-man roster this morning.
Yep. I think that's the answer.
Does that mean they're cutting loose Smith? It has to, right?
They're either going to cut Irv Smith or cut someone else from the tight end room.
Yep.
If they cut Drew Sample, I'll be a sad, sad man over here, Tom. He's the answer to this team. But here's the thing. I was doing this thought experiment with Casey about
beat down the little guy.
I love Drew.
That's what you're all about. You never criticize the stars. Am I right on this, Elliot?
You're right. 100%.
He never criticizes the stars. When Joe Burrow stinks it up,
right,
doesn't say a bad word.
100%.
When Patrick Mahomes stinks it up, 2 picks and a fumble, never criticize him. No.
Agree.
No, let's beat down the 3rd or 4th string tight end.
It's always guys like Adam Kunkel, you know? And then they come in and they save the day, Tom.
Drew Sample is a way better player than Adam Kunkel could ever think about being. You get on X.com and you search positive things about Drew Sample. There'll be one Twitter account, one X account doing it, and that's at Reed Mouse Radio. I'm the only one tooting the horn of DS89 and getting him the ball in open space. That being said, Tom, me and Casey did this experiment, and I said, the fact that they were trying to get Irv Smith involved in the game on Sunday, I think is telling their hand about how they want to get the tight ends more involved. Yeah, we might see him gone. He might get cut this week. But I said, what would be a productive season going forward for Irv Smith? We got 10 games left in the season, and I said, is it possible for him to get 400 yards this season? That would be him getting 40 yards a game. That's not going to happen. So I was like, what about 300 yards for the rest of the year? Well, that's once again, he's going to be getting 28 because he's only got 50 yards this year. He'd have to get 25 yards a game. And I don't even see that being a possibility. So I just think that we've already put ourselves in a hole in the tight end position, and now we're trying to reclaim it the best way we can. Is it Irv Smith? Is it Tanner Hudson? I don't know, Tom. But I do think the Bengals are going to get these guys more involved.
The bottom line is you can't be worse than the current situation that is Irv Smith. So get rid of him, bring in Tanner Hudson. It literally can't be worse. So I see no reason to change. By the way, that update, they just announced it 8 minutes ago. The Bengals Twitter account did. It was Clay Johnston has been signed to the practice squad, linebacker and tight end Tanner Hudson to the active roster.
Okay. All right.
No corresponding.
Let's don't forget here now, Drew Sample was a second-round pick.
Correct.
Out of Washington.
What a steal.
And his M.O. is that he could catch the football.
What a steal, Tom.
Second-round pick.
Yep.
But you guys didn't want to give up a second-round pick to go get a stud yesterday. Tracy even asked Reed if he would give up a first-round pick for Justin Jefferson. He had to think about it.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my gosh.
That's fake news,
Trace,
Tom.
is that what happened?
That's fake news, Tom.
Trace.
That's exactly what happened.
Thank you, Trace. I mean, he actually, most of us would have been at the last part of our breath, but we'd have still gotten out, hell yeah!
Yeah. Then he tried to offer up some excuse about salary cap going through his brain and all that. That'd be like, Tom, imagine this. Someone would be like, hey, would you like this $1 million house for $20? And being like, how many the taxes? I got to think through this, that. No, you just say, we'll figure it out later.
Experiment. I don't know.
We'll figure it out later.
Would I trade Drew Sample for Justin Jefferson? Not a chance in hell, Tom. Not a chance in hell.
The show's gone off the rails now, Tom.
No, totally. Totally. Okay, so I think we all agree there are some teams, couple contenders we talked about. Jacksonville gets a little bit better, right?
Yep, that's right.
At least theoretically. The 49ers get a little bit better. Because, look, everybody can talk about the pieces they're missing on offense with Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams. Neither played against the Bengals. McCaffrey's been a little nicked up. But the thing that when you really read about what they're writing about in San Francisco and in the Bay Area is they're worried about this defense because they don't have guys hurt there. And they were carved up by the Bengalis last week. I mean, were it not for your guy Irv Smith's fumble inside the 5 and a missed field goal, it was a long field goal to be fair to McPherson, 50-plus yarder, but he's pretty good at him. In fact, the best in the league at him over the last 3 years. But that one he missed, he pushed off to the right a little bit. That's fine. I mean, that would have been a 41-point game against that defense. That's the 49ers.
Right.
That's right.
Right, Tom.
I mean, all season long, I've been saying that team has one of the most stacked defenses. I called it the most unfair team on my show on Mac and JT. And they, after getting a beat down from the Bengals, they got so scared that they decided to throw out a rental, a third-round pick to go get Chase Young to make it probably one of the best defenses I've ever seen. I mean, that they have Pro Bowlers at every single position on their defensive line. And then their backups are pretty darn good too. So, yeah, I mean, that team got significantly better. But I think where you're going to go was that some of the teams maybe got worse after this trade dedeadline. I don't know if that's where you're going.
Who in your opinion got worse? That's a contending team. I don't care about the one team that shocked me, I cannot believe with all of the draft picks they have given up to get Russell Wilson, right?
Right.
And you've got some pieces on that team, like every team does. You've got some pieces on that Denver team that, my goodness, how do you not peel off this guy or that guy or that guy to start getting some picks back? Because you gave up damn near the whole franchise to get Russell Wilson. Right?
Right.
And look, he's coming off a 3-touchdown game. They beat Kansas City over the weekend. And, Wilson's numbers really this year are not that bad. Certainly not indicative of the amount of heat he's taken. I'm not suggesting he's having a great year. I'm not. But they aren't brutal numbers this year for Wilson. Point I'm making is, though, how did they not just gut this thing and sit on some of these guys they're sitting on? They're 2-5.
Tom, because that would give them such a long road back. They got to hold out hope because it's so bleak in Denver, so bleak that all they can do is hope to win next year with what they've got. That's all they have hope for. Because if they start gutting it right now, it's a 7-year climb back to being a contending team again. And that's in the NFL where one good draft class can turn you around. But if they gut it right now, where you're paying Russell Wilson $50 million and don't have first-round draft picks for the next few years, it's such a long road back that their only hope is just keep trudging forward and hopefully it gets better.
I don't understand it. I don't understand. We heard a lot of the reasons why yesterday, in-depth reasons why, from Brian Billick, who was a head coach in the NFL for 9-10 years, won a Super Bowl, and was very active in what was going on, had a phenomenal relationship with the guy who hired him. Modell hired him, but the guy who hired him was Ozzie Newsome, longtime general manager there in Baltimore. And so Brian would be in on all those meetings, and you heard him talk about some of the reasons why you don't see it as much in football as you do in other sports. Certainly baseball at the trade deadline is very, very active, more years than not. But, man, if I had money to spend, if you had money to spend, and the Bengals are $12.5 million under the salary cap, if you've got some wiggle room there to go get somebody right now, you're 4-3. You've got this killer schedule coming up. You are coming off your most impressive game of the year, where now that should be the expectation. Right now, that's the outlier of this season, because the offense was dead last in the NFL going into the game in San Francisco. But Burrow clearly was healthy for the first time. They made some changes getting hip up under center. They ran the ball better. They worked in more people besides just Jamar Chase. Higgins shows up. Smith even caught a couple of balls. Mixon ran the ball well. Irwin had a couple of – there was a lot going on that we've not seen all year long. And then after watching it, you have to say maybe the Burrow injury was a bigger deal than any of us really thought it was. Because they weren't giving you a whole lot of information about how healthy he really was. And nor should they. But this now is the expectation for this team, is it not?
Yeah,
that offense we saw is what you now should expect. We expected it from the beginning of the year, right?
Yes.
With all the weapons, all the money you spent on the offensive line, we expected this team to look like that this season. Burrow's injury prevented that. He's now healthy. They can't make steps backwards, right?
Right.
I think that was the expectation in the locker room all season long. Clearly didn't get there until the last game. But, yeah, that should always be this expectation with the amount of money they're spending on the offensive line, with the players that they have on the perimeter, with Joe Burrow as your quarterback. Yes, you should strive, and you should be in the top 5, top 3, top of the NFL in yards per game and points per game, all these things. Yes, Tom, absolutely. Will it continue? That remains to be seen. They've got a very tough schedule ahead.
Yep.
They've got a very, very tough schedule ahead. 2 out of the last 3 weeks, they've scored 30 points. Will we continue to see Sunday Night Football in front of millions and millions of viewers and thousands and thousands of fans? A beautiful time for the Bengals to continue to show that this offense is, once again, elite. But that remains to be seen. But, yes, it should be the expectation going forward.
Speaking of showing.
Yeah, I saw.
Your beautiful bride. There have been a lot of comments about your
don't think that's-
sweater today. And Mariana chips in, says, Reed, honey, unzip your sweater just a little.
Listen, I grabbed this sweater out of the closet. It was hanging. I haven't worn it in a while. My wife actually bought this for me. I don't necessarily love wearing it, but I was like, hey, let's try something new today. This will never
I think
be
it
put
looks
on.
good.
Thanks.
I
I
like
think
it.
it looks very good.
I think it looks fantastic.
I don't know why it was getting drilled so much in the chat. Maybe I'm just an easy target, but you know what? I zipped it down a little bit for my wife.
Okay.
Just showing the little chest hairs that I do got. I'll puff them out above the zipper.
There
now,
you go.
Now we got some sex appeal on the show.
There
Tom.
we go. And boy, do we need that. We're lacking in some areas, but man, we are damn near at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to that. Somebody even asked if Elliot was my son in the chat today.
You look alike.
We look a lot alike, Tom.
I'm old enough to be.
We look a
Old
lot
enough to be.
alike.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys to continue on with something, and I'll be back in a minute.
Nature calls, Tom.
All right. Well, we'll
There's some
continue
sex
on with
appeal
something.
for you.
We'll continue on with something.
Find it. Figure it out.
You know, before we get into the
Josh Lambo.
the World Series talk,
World Series.
yeah, I mean that was a wild game. I know we're gonna talk about the World Series here in a minute.
We are
but
going to talk about the World Series. Yep.
What's on your mind, Case?
the one thing that was on my mind, and where I thought he was gonna go about teams getting possibly worse, and Trace, you're probably gonna be with me on this one. What are the Bears doing?
What are the Bears doing? I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to be like, oh, Mr.
Right.
Packer fan, but like, what are they doing?
Why?
Like, unless they've had some preconceived conversation with the agent of Sweat, and they're gonna like do an
Sign a
extension,
deal, yeah.
Right.
basically a trade and sign or whatever, however you want to say it. That makes no sense. They're terrible. They're not. I mean, and Ryan Poles, their general manager, I just looked up when I was trying to figure out if he was in the last deal of his contract. His quote says, "We're looking forward to him coming in and making an immediate impact and making this team better." It's like, what are you talking about? They're terrible. Imagine being like the Kansas City Royals, and at the deadline, you make a trade for a guy, and it's like basically a reliever, and you're like, yeah, this is gonna help us win a couple extra games. It's like, what is it gonna win you? I'm confused. I'm so confused by this.
This is 2 straight years where they were completely out of contention at the trade deadline, and they've traded away their second-round pick. Last year, they got Chase Claypool. Remember that?
Yeah.
They got Chase Claypool while they traded away their tight end, right? Didn't they have a tight? No, that was
No.
T.J. Hawkinson went from the Vikings to the
correct.
Lions. All right, different NFC North teams. But it's 2 straight years they've traded a second-round pick for a player to make their team better, and they're gonna. That's like the 35th overall pick.
They traded away, and again, whether you're a Justin Fields guy or not, it doesn't matter. Like, but you traded away the opportunity of getting a guy like C.J. Stroud, who, for all intents and purposes, looks and appears to be like a franchise quarterback. Okay, that's fine. If you're all in on Justin Fields, that's cool. But then you trade back, and Jalen Carter drops to you, who arguably is the best defense. Not even arguably, he was clearly the best defender in the draft, and you pass on him because of I guess you're worried about the off the field incidents. There's no, of all of the franchises, genuinely, that you could, as a fan, sit back and just ask the simple question, what are you doing? And I would genuinely think that the general manager of this professional franchise would have a pretty hard time explaining it with just a rational fan. It's Ryan Poles in the Chicago Bears. You can't rationalize what they did. It makes legitimately 0 sense.
They did have a need in pass rush, but like,
They have 2 wins.
right, like I don't get giving up a second rounder this year for Montez Sweat when you were going to have the option to sign him at the end of the season anyways. Like, if you're willing to pay him that contract, whatever they agreed to, if they even agreed to anything, it's probably going to be top dollar regardless. So I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. And like you said, it's like the 35th pick. It's not like some bottom second-round pick. And you've been without now your second-round pick for a couple years. It just didn't make any sense. And the other team that didn't make sense to me, that didn't do any trades, it's actually 2 of them, Chiefs and the Ravens, who have no receivers. I didn't
Well,
get
the
that
Chiefs,
at all.
the Chiefs got Hardman back. The Chiefs got McCole Hardman back.
Hardman.
I don't know if you want to count that, but he was productive.
Yes, he was.
He was productive in Kansas City the way they use him. He basically has replaced the Tyreek Hill role where he's doing end arounds and all kind of weird stuff. So that's one move. But yeah, the other one, yeah.
The Ravens, I don't know what we're doing.
Ravens refuse to give Lamar Jackson help. They refuse.
Well,
Lamar,
wait a minute now. Brian Billick said yesterday, and I think he's right on this. They lost J.K. Dobbs at the beginning of the year. J.K. Dobbins. He's their primary guy. But you go look at their numbers the last couple of weeks in the run game. They're doing fine. I mean, the Flowers kid's going to be a good player. We said that at the draft. I thought he was the most polished receiver there was coming out of college last year. Their first-round pick, Zay Flowers. I think he's going to be an excellent player. OBJ's got to stay healthy. You know, you got guys like Aguilar and Bateman. And, I mean, the point is that, like he said yesterday, Brian Billick, they may not have one Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson or T. Higgins for that matter. But as a group, it's the best group that Jackson has had. And the tight end Edwards.
I watched that same group drop 9 passes.
I know. They had a game this year where that, I agree.
9 passes,
But we
Tom,
also
against the
saw a
Steelers.
game where T. Higgins dropped 4 or 5 passes.
That's fair.
An outlier.
That's fair. That's one receiver in a stacked wide receiver room. The Ravens have no help on receiving wise. They have Mark Andrews, who is limited again by his size and speed. So there's only so much you can do with a tight end of that size. You look around, OBJ has another game last week, or on Sunday, where he had 0 catches. 0 for 4. He was visibly upset. He was giving a tantrum on the sideline, throwing his helmet. They don't throw it to Odell because Odell's not very good. Rashad Bateman is not very good. Rashad Bateman is not on the roster of half the teams in the NFL other than the Ravens. Zay Flowers is good. Zay Flowers will be good. He's had a couple bad games, but Zay Flowers is good. Other than that, he has no help. He has absolutely 0 help. That's been my biggest issue with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, if you even want to throw him in there, is that he has constantly had no help to throw to. Yeah, the running game's great. And who's the guy that was hurt? You said
Dobbins.
I'm forgetting these names left and right. Dobbins has been hurt now like 3 straight seasons.
Yes, he has.
So you can't say that's your number one guy. He gets hurt every single year, time and time again. So Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and the committee they've got, they know how to work with them because, again, Dobbins is hurt time and time again. So Lamar Jackson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And people who call him a running back, I get it. He's a mobile quarterback. But at the end of the day, he has had absolutely 0 people to throw to for his entire career, other than an aging Steve Smith Sr. and God knows who else he was thrown to at age 40.
For what it's worth, Baltimore is 7th in the league in scoring.
Well,
Monken, baby.
I mean, they're averaging 115 rushing yards per game. They're averaging 230 passing yards per game, and their average attempt is almost 8 yards. Burrow was sitting at the bottom down there with the Bengals around 5.
Right.
They're up at 8. Okay, you couple that with their defense alone. You know, touchdowns. Ravens have scored 23 touchdowns. They've given up 10 all year.
Tom, they're scoring more points than teams like the Chargers, who score a lot of points. Detroit, who we love their offense, they're scoring more points than the Chiefs. Like, their offense can be better, does have room for improvement, as Elliott points out, but they're still scoring at a high rate. This Baltimore team, I don't think is getting the proper credit for how well they've played through 8 games.
I agree with you.
Ready for the homer take? I'm being serious when I say this. And I haven't watched the Ravens a whole lot, so it's hard for me to say this as a fact. But I will say, when I've watched Georgia the past few years, Todd Monken was their coordinator. He left. He went to the Ravens. And Todd Monken was the best coordinator that I had seen at Georgia ever since I've ever watched. And it wasn't even so much to where it was because of the players. Everyone talks about all the players that – but when was the last time you could say Georgia had, you know, like – and they've had some great receivers, yes, but they've always been hurt. Even A.J. Green was hurt for most of his career at Georgia towards the end. George Pickens was hurt the entire time. Monken was there. Yes, he has Brock Bowers and all that. But I'm just saying that's some of it. I'm not suggesting that the Ravens are all they're having all this success because of Tom Monken, but he came over, and that certainly probably helped if I had to guess.
They're going at almost 49% success rate on third down this year. I mean, that's an unbelievable number. 49%. I mean, they're getting it done now.
Tom,
They're getting it done.
They're 6-2 and we're going to do our power rankings in the second hour. But is there any AFC team playing better than them right now? I don't know. They're certainly at the top of it. Is there any team in the NFL playing better than them?
Well, only the Eagles.
I don't know.
Mark asked a good question. Are they peaking too early? Which I think is a real thing in the NFL.
So
nobody peaked too early like they did last year. I mean, they looked like a juggernaut last season. Remember when the season started, all Lamar was doing? But the guy's gotten hurt. And that's the big question they got to be asking in Baltimore is how long can this last? Because the last 2 years, he's missed I think I read 11 or 12 games in December and or January.
When Lamar Jackson's on the field, the Ravens are a top 3, top 5 team in the NFL. We've seen that over the last 2 years.
Yep.
The problem is he gets hurt. He gets hurt in November, and he doesn't play in November, December, and then playoffs come around. He honestly hasn't played very well in the playoffs when he is there. So, yeah, can Lamar put a full season together like his MVP season back in 2019? Can we still see that Lamar for a full season? That remains to be seen, just because of the way he plays.
Everett points out Lamar has not shown he can beat Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, etc. when it matters. Fair point.
That's fair.
Fair point.
Right.
More than fair.
All right, so it's Wednesday time, and we haven't gotten to our picks from last week.
Okay.
So
all right.
Before we get into the second hour, let's go through our picks.
Okay, and coming up later on, we're still going to get into the World Series. I've seen a couple people in the chat that are saying, get the World Series over so we can get started on Red's Hot Stove. But, hey, I get that. I mean, because, look, the Votto thing, what do they have, 5 days after the conclusion of the World Series? Is that what the rule is?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's a handful of days after the World Series. They're going to have to make a decision. Are they picking up his $20 million option? Are they trying to negotiate a contract because you got to pay him $7 million just to leave? Here's $7 million. We'll see you later. Maybe they come back and say, hey, we'll tack on 3-4 more on that. But they can't do that now. They might be doing it behind the scenes. You're not allowed to do it. But, nobody's going to care if the Reds are trying to figure out a way to bring Votto back. But that's a decision that has to be made. And the sooner the World Series ends, the sooner we start talking about those decisions. They're talking about them. You can book it right now down on Joe Nuxall Way. And a whole strategy for what they're going to do this offseason because they have got some money to spend. Mike Moustakas, your guy, you thought about bringing him back. He's off the books. I think Bronson Arroyo and Ken Griffey Jr. are finally off the books, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true.
And then you got $25 million of Votto off the books, theoretically. And they made some money down there. I mean, remember early in the year, we're talking about, smallest crowds in the history of ballpark, 6,000, 7,000. And then they started rolling, and the fans start pouring through the gates at Great American Ballpark.
You talked about stars yesterday, Tom, and I was thinking to myself, the weird thing about the Reds, and I think a lot of Reds fans would agree that Elly De La Cruz is not probably our most influential player this past year. But without question, I was thinking to myself, if the Reds and the Diamondbacks swapped, would there be more appeal to the World Series? And the only answer that I could come up with was yes, because of Elly De La Cruz, and that's literally it.
I think you're right.
That's fair.
I think you're right. I'll tell you one thing that wouldn't happen. We'll get into this. Although, I don't know. The Reds, they do so much by analytics. I'm not sure. But I mean, for the life of me, I sit there and again, we're going to get to this later. And he's been doing it all year, and he knows his team better than I ever will when talking about Torey Lovello, the manager of the Diamondbacks. I mean, clearly, they are in the World Series, so he's done a lot right. I just don't know how the sport gets to a point where you are in Game 4 of the World Series and you're going with a bullpen game. I don't know how we ever got to that. I mean, the one World Series that I had a chance to broadcast, and again, it was the Diamondbacks in 0-1 against the Yankees. You had Schilling Game 1, Johnson Game 2. Yankees had Clemens Game 1, Pettit Game 2. Game 3, the Diamondbacks come back with Miguel Batista, who goes 7 innings, gives up 1 run. Game 4, they start Brian Anderson, left-hander, kid out of Cleveland, Ohio. 7 innings, 1 run. That was their fourth starter. And last night, we're seeing the Diamondbacks starting the game with a relief pitcher. And the guy had not technically given up a run yet in the second inning. He had allowed one hit and one walk and left with a runner at second base and an out in the second inning and no score in the game. And he's taken out of the game. Well, before you know it, you kick a ball here, misplay a ball there. It's the third inning we've seen 4 or 5 pitchers, and it's 10-0 Texas. Okay.
I'm okay with that strategy if you're winning in the series. I'm okay with the bullpen game if you're up 2-1 and you're heading into game 4 and you're like, okay, let's rest our guys maybe a little bit, give them a little bit of extra rest. But if you're losing the series, if you're down 2-1 and you're throwing in relievers, it's a tough existence there.
Game 4 has always been a weird game, though, Tom, in the World Series, because that's like when you get out of the frontline starters and the managers know, hey, we just got to get to Game 5. What's the best way that we can, use one of our back-end starters and then get to our relievers? Look, I'm looking at last year's World Series Game 4. There was a total of 11 pitchers used in that game. 2 years ago, that Game 4, there was a total of 13 pitchers used in that game. So this is maybe not a full-blown Johnny Holstaff game, but Game 4 has always been a wonky game.
No, it's always been the last 4 or 5 years since analytics came into play. It hasn't always been that way.
That's fair.
I mean, and the point I was going to make that Trace brought up, I mean, think of the Reds. Okay, and again, I don't know what David Bell would have done. But if they had, we'll just keep Lodolo out because he wasn't even a factor. We knew he wouldn't have been able to participate in the postseason. But if you had Hunter Green, Graham Ashcraft, Andrew Abbott, Brandon Williamson would have started Game 4 and given you a legitimate chance to pitch into the 6th inning.
I don't think Brandon Williamson would have pitched in the 6th inning.
I think he might have. He was on a pretty good run there at the end.
That's fair.
But I'm saying he's a guy, at least you're not going to run out there for an inning and a third unless he gives up 5 runs, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. I just don't understand how it comes to this. I don't get it.
And you are right, Tom. I go back 20 years. I just pulled a random World Series out of a hat. I look at the 2003 World Series, Yankees versus Marlins, Game 4. Carl Pavano went 8 innings. Roger Clemens went 7 innings. So, yeah, it's a very.
Rob Manfred did say he wanted to try to figure out a way, and I don't know how he's going to do it. Best of luck to him. But he did say he wants to incentivize teams to utilize starting pitching longer. And I don't know how he's going to do that. I mean, there's a multitude of ways you could come up with, but many people are going to be pissed off however he decides to try to do that.
You get a 4th out in the 5th inning if your pitcher's still in the game.
Honestly, it'd be like you get a ghost runner. Like, as stupid as this sounds, if your starting pitcher is in the game in the 7th inning in the top of the 8th or bottom of the 8th, you get a ghost runner at second. Like, that's which is possible. I mean, that's a little out there.
Well,
But don't you think Dusty Baker, and I don't mean to bring 2012 up, but the Mike Leake game, the way that Reds bullpen was, if analytics were a little more prevalent, and again, I know Dusty's not an analytical guy, but at the same time, you could make the argument that would have been a primed candidate to run your bullpen out there, one in which was well rested, and try to win a baseball game instead of running a guy out there for the first time in his major league career in a playoff game that meant a lot, and you don't know what you're going to get out of him.
Well, but at least Leak that season was a viable. Did not miss a start. Started the season right out of Arizona State, into the rotation. Guy won 12, 14 games, something like that.
Yeah.
He had a good year.
I'm not taking anything away from him.
Yeah. And, I mean, Arroyo, we've had him on this show, and he said that he begged Dusty to bring him back to pitch Game 4.
Correct.
Of that series. And Dusty decided not to. Now here comes Latos. And anyway, the whole thing, we've rehashed this over and over ad nauseum. All right, let's get to the picks.
All right, let's get to the
We'll
picks.
talk more about the World Series in a little bit. Might be over tonight. Across the board, Oklahoma State. A lot of people in this room were very worried when it was 10-7 at halftime.
I certainly was. But you know what? The home team brought it home. Good for Oklahoma State. Good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we keep doing this with UC. They're just not very good this year.
Shout out to UC's kicker again. I'm not going to name names. Ripped the ball off the left upright from 15 yards. Ripped it.
I accidentally deleted the spread. I think
It was 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5.
I got it. No, it was not. It was 7.5.
Yeah, that's
Seven
right.
and a half.
It was 7.5.
That's right. That's right.
By
I
the way,
know it
Tom-
wasn't. I know it wasn't like 28 or whatever that ended up being. So I think you guys are safe.
Yeah.
Everybody off the board. The question is, will UC win a game in the Big 12 this year?
Absolutely not.
Sean asked the question yesterday, and I don't know if we've ever done the research. Has there been a new incoming ACC? Is that what they call themselves? Or no, the AAC. The AAC teams, have any of them won a game? And I think the answer was yes. Houston has won one game
Like Iowa State or
against
something, or-
West Virginia.
Okay.
So shout
Go
out to
Cougars.
UC and UCF. One of them will get their first win in the Big 12.
Casey.
One day.
If we had Oklahoma on the ropes. It was
You're right about that.
It was
You say
20 to
that
6.
kiddingly.
The final was 20 to
They
6.
started waving the weed out there, and
That's right.
in Oklahoma.
Elliott 1-0 to start these picks. By the way, I love my chances.
You have Cincinnati at 0-5.
It's not going.
Cincinnati at 0-5. UCF clash of the Titans this weekend at Nippert. Bearcat bash, then get home for LSU, Alabama. Houston is 1-4, although Houston should have beaten Texas the week before. They ran out of steam at the end of the game. And BYU is 2-3. So a total of 3 wins in what?
Well,
5?
BYU didn't come from the American.
They did not.
And they
Oh,
beat-
you're right. You're
they
right.
beat
You're
UC.
right. I beg your pardon. You're right. So they're
that-
1-14.
Yeah.
Something's got to give this weekend. Throw out the record books when UC and UCF get together.
Oh yeah,
Damn right,
the
Tom.
national champions, UCF.
Damn right.
What a pitiful organization that is.
Who?
UCF.
I
Who
love
isn't
what
that?
they
Isn't the
call
old Auburn coach down there?
Who?
Mazzalon, what's his name?
Oh yeah, he is. I forget his name.
I guarantee you they'll start winning some games.
Maybe national champions, self-proclaimed. Next game.
Okay, next game.
That's how they wouldn't
This
do
is when things went south for Casey and me.
Yeah, it's a tough one, Tom.
That was a butt kicking. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I can sit here as an OU alum and say that was a tail kicking. Chuck Martin, you are coaching your tail off and your kids are playing great. Good luck the rest of the way, and I mean it.
all those high nooners and frat kids over there in Oxford.
It doesn't
just,
change the high nooners.
just
Chuck Martin is a hell of a football coach. And the guys that are coming to the game, they're drinking some raspberry thing. All right, go ahead. What's
by the way,
next?
2-0,
Whatever that
Tom, if you're
pineapple or
if-
bushberry or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Bushberry, yeah.
Tom, if you're paying attention, that's 2-0 now for Elliott. 2-0. Next
many
game.
more-
It'll change.
How many more successful seasons does Chuck Martin have to have before he gets consideration for at least
Here we
some
go.
kind of?
He'll be pursued this offseason.
When you're playing the Little Sisters of the Poor every year, it doesn't really matter. does it?
replacing.
They
Coach
went
Sapp.
into they
Wow,
went
hold on
into
a
they
second.
went, they went into Nip at night and beat
at night?
Hold on a second.
Satterfield on a
Hold on a
Saturday.
minute.
Everybody
Hold on a
beats
minute.
Satterfield
Have
on
you
a
ever heard of
Saturday.
Urban Meyer?
I have heard of
He
him.
coached at Bowling Green. Have you ever heard of Brian Kelly?
I have
He
heard of
coached
Brian
at
Kelly.
Central Michigan. Okay, I mean, you can find a damn good football coach.
Did they stay there
Look
for
at
20
the guy
years?
at Kansas. He left Buffalo. And all of a sudden, they're like, hey, maybe you can wait on the basketball season for a little bit. We got a pretty good thing going here. There are real men that come out of the MAC.
That's right.
Okay.
So don't badmouth the MAC.
I'm glad everybody chose to stay in the MAC because that's where the real men are. They stay in the MAC, they get the job at the MAC, and they stay at the MAC. Every year. Next game.
Next. Everybody picked the Buckeyes, and look, the wise guys in Vegas, they knew what they were doing.
They did.
Got hooked.
Right?
Got hooked.
Yep. 24 to 10 was the final. Buckeyes don't cover. All of us lose. So there's an L, Elliott. What's
Elliott
next?
2-1 by the
All right.
hook. Asterisk 3-0. Easy.
You know what? This really was just a complete dumb pick by you and me.
Why, Tom?
They had them. They had
You
that
know,
game.
I
I
mean,
expect
Florida's
we
a
had things
joke.
like
I just
this.
brought up Urban Meyer. They have stunk since Urban Meyer walked out the door. At the University of Florida, what are they going through? Dan Mullen, and who's this guy now? Napier, and they went through McElwain, right? And all these guys. I mean, Florida?
Emory Jones
I
played
don't
at
know
Florida.
what to tell you.
Emory Jones played a full season at Florida. A couple of them. That should tell you a little bit.
We had them. I mean, our Gators had this game won. A few things went wrong
sure
late,
did.
and
They were done when they walked out of the tunnel.
Hey, they marched right down the field, scored touchdown, 7-0.
Right, that's right.
And then DUN.
That was the end of that.
That's exactly right. All right, Casey.
Elliott,
You
3-1.
Elliott, you're 3-1. Got it going on. There's another one. Casey, what were we thinking?
Easy.
Oregon's for real.
Yeah, are we sleeping on Oregon?
I guess Bo Nix is all right. I guess he's okay. But
Okay,
Oregon's for
so
real.
fellas, here's the thing, though. And somebody made the comment yesterday, but Trace might have been you, somebody else. And most people agree with this comment. But, talking about what do the college football playoff rankings really mean, the first one, okay? And there's a detailed history of where teams were in the first ranking and where they were once the Final Four was decided. Here's what the initial ranking does do. Oregon lost to Washington. If anybody's watched every game since then, Oregon looks like twice the team Washington does, right?
Right.
They do.
Yeah.
But because they beat them, I think we all would agree. Okay, they beat them, so Washington's going to be ranked ahead of them, right?
Right.
Okay, well, the reason I bring this up is if that is ultimately your decider in who's going to be ranked higher, because there's going to be a one-loss team, maybe two one-loss teams that get into the college football playoff. Not every team that goes to the college football playoff is undefeated. Remember last year, Ohio State and TCU both had losses. Michigan and Georgia were undefeated. So there's going to be at least two. Okay, well, if that's your, let's say, your argument for Washington being ahead of Oregon, what happens if Washington loses one game and Oregon loses one game? You've already established the fact that you think Washington, okay, now granted undefeated, but they beat Oregon head-to-head. I think it's safe to say, fellas sitting here in this room, Oregon's number 6 behind Washington 5. If Washington loses a game, Oregon's leapfrogging them.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Tom.
So it's a big deal where you get ranked in that first thing. It's a big deal. And if you go back and look at the history of the whole thing of where teams were, the only team that has come all from way back was in 2014 Ohio State, the very first year. The first ranking, they were 16th and wound up 4th in the final poll, destroyed Alabama in the semis, and boat raced Oregon in the championship. That's the only team that's come way, way back. There have been teams 8, 9, stuff like that, but nobody as far as 16. All right, what's next?
Pro game. Bad beat.
Look at that. What a sharp play.
Sharp. Elliott is
Backdoor
5-1 on these picks. 5-1 on these picks.
Okay, how did that translate to your actual cash flow?
I was profitable. I was profitable this weekend. I want some money.
He's a zillionaire.
I'm a zillionaire.
He's a zillionaire.
A regular zillionaire.
What a backdoor cover.
That was a
there.
great
backdoor
That was
cover.
disgusting.
A great backdoor cover.
They kicked a field goal with 30 seconds left.
Well, they had the onside kick
Right, I
thing
get
where
it, I
Aguilar's
get it.
standing there, and he doesn't even try to go get the ball. He got it the second time. All right.
Here comes another bad beat, Tom. For me, at least.
Elliott is 6-1 on these picks. 6-1 on these picks.
Ooh. Look at us.
6-1. It was never a doubt in that game. It took
Right.
one helmet
Never a
interception.
doubt.
It took
Correct.
one helmet interception. Bounced 50 feet in the air, intercepted, boom, touchdown. Seahawks win and cover easily.
Casey, we're going to bring this up because you're going to have your stink list later in the show today. And just looking back on that now, how do you say all the terrible things that you say about Cleveland, the Browns, the city, the suburbs, when I try to talk about how nice the suburbs are in Cleveland, along the lake, west and east, and then you pick them?
That's right. I did pick them because I didn't have any faith in Seattle, the team that I absolutely adore, and Geno Smith. But I just thought it was a really bad matchup. But I was wrong. And like Elliott just said, it was never a doubt, apparently. It only took an interception to
Off
seal
the
that
head.
game. Off the head, off the helmet to seal that game. So it was just a bad beat. It was just a bad beat on my part.
Elliott 6-1.
Elliott is 6-1 up to this moment.
Okay. Next up, I had a bad weekend.
Tom, did you get one right?
Yeah, I got like 2, I think.
Yeah, he's got a couple right.
Men of Aluminum, their offense is just so bad. They're playing tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken.
They do play tomorrow night.
What a putrid game
Is
that
Kenny
will be.
Pickett playing to Mitch Trubisky? Whew. I watched this entire game, Tom. Whew. That was a tough offensive performance. Kenny Pickett got hurt, I think, like in the second quarter, and Mitch
Yep.
went in there. And Mitch, he
2
looked
picks.
Tom, they weren't. I mean, you might as well just hand the ball off to the defensive end. They were terrible. Terrible.
Men of Aluminum, Elliot, is that a win or a loss for you?
That's unfortunately a loss for me, but you know what? We're 6-2 right now. If you're riding my picks, you're up $1 million.
First touchdown in this game was scored with 5 minutes left in the third quarter.
Brutal.
QB Kenny Pickett says he is, quote, for sure playing versus the Titans on Thursday night.
Good.
I like.
I am
I have a
excited
little
to
bit
see
belief
your
in you.
homeboy Will Levis tomorrow night.
It is the game between two guys that I stand behind, and Will Levis and Kenny Pickett.
The Mayo coffee drinker.
Don't watch Kenny Pickett for the first 3 quarters. Just watch him cook in the fourth. That's when he shines, Tom.
You know what? Now, there's truth to that.
18 starts, 6 game-winning drives. That's all I'm saying. That's 1/3 of his starts.
And when you watch that game, I don't think Jacksonville's in the top tier of teams. I don't. I think ATN is a great back. Lawrence can be very good. You know, it's hard to say how good their defense is because Pittsburgh's offense is so bad. I don't think Jacksonville, and look, the Bengals are going to play them down there. But I don't think when push comes to shove in a playoff game, I don't think Jacksonville beats the Bengals. I don't think they beat the Ravens. I don't think they beat the Chiefs. I don't think they beat Miami. You agree or disagree?
There was some hype revolving the Jaguars going into the year because of the way they finished last year.
Yep.
They started out 3-7, then went on a run, made the playoffs, won a playoff game. Then they start 1-2. And everyone's like, listen, this Jacksonville team's not very good. Well, what have they done since then? They've ripped off 5 straight wins. So they're playing ball very well right now. They've got a good coach. They got a good quarterback. That's the recipe to win in this league. Do I think they're on the same pedestal as the Lamar Jackson, Jim Harbaughs, and the Chiefs with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow? No. But they're still a pretty good team. They're going to win 12 games.
I agree they're a pretty good team. I'm just saying I don't think that they are, when all is said and done, they're not there yet. Maybe they will get there. Who knows? A lot of football left to be played. Okay. Is that it?
Nope, we got 2 more left.
2 more. Okay. I probably don't want to see them. We all picked the Cowboys. That was a massacre.
Easy win.
Yeah.
Casey, you're the one who's talking up the Rams last week.
Yeah, but this is a bad matchup for them, Tom. I mean, they were going to get killed. They don't have a great offensive line. Matthew Stafford, clearly.
Would you have given up a first and second round pick for Aaron Donald?
No, not a first and second.
No. Too old.
It's too old. Last year of his contract, I'm pretty sure, or pretty darn close to it.
Okay. Just curious.
Wouldn't do it.
All right. Go ahead.
Then finally,
Look at us.
Look at that, Tom. 8-2 for Elliott. I don't want to hear anybody talking about my bad gambling ever again. 8-2, easy. Easy money there. And one of them lost by the hook, so depending on when you place that Ohio State bet, you might have won it.
There are 4 gamblers out of 5 humans in this room. I have every other vice there is. That's not one of them. There are 4 gamblers in this room. Last weekend, just give me a dollar amount. How much money did you win gambling last weekend? Casey, we'll start with you.
how much
Total.
money? How much?
Total cash, win or lose.
Um,
And nobody from the IRS watches your shows because the Republicans are getting rid of all those people who work there. So go ahead.
I made about $450,
Okay.
$500.
Trace?
I did not place a bet.
Okay. Elliot?
It was probably around 250.
Yeah, somewhere in the 300 range, up like $1,500 in the month of October. Hopefully my wife's not watching.
Zebra. That puts you low man on the totem pole.
I'm trying to win money, Tom. I'll get my wins where I can get them. Last night, I'm sure we might talk about it, we might not. It was the first night of action football last night. It was a beautiful snowy evening in Toledo in central Michigan. I bet on the Toledo under because in my brain, I thought, you know what, snow game, blizzard, It's going under 47. They scored 28 points in the first quarter.
Right.
So my brain tells me, all right, we've already lost that bet. We're going to now place it on the over 58. So I'm riding that. It gets to halftime. There's 31 points scored. There's 31 points scored. Now I'm questioning that over I took.
Sure.
Because now it looks like that might not hit. So I did another alternate over of 51. So now I had 2 bets on all over 51 and 1 on over 58, but I still had the under 47. Well, luckily for me, only 10 points were scored in the second half, so the initial under that I placed before the other 2 bets, that was the one that won. How about that? So I lost money on the game.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's just a terrible brain.
I have never heard of anything like that in my life, and I'm sure that's commonplace for those who gamble, right? But I've never heard of that in my life.
I do the opposite, Tom. If I see a team score 28 points in the first quarter, I immediately go to the live line and I bet the under because you would like to think that water finds its level and things are going to probably get back to the original line. So he does the opposite, it turns out.
Well, Justin says Elliott might need to call that hotline number.
I absolutely do. I'm not putting hundreds down, Tom. I'm putting tens down.
Steve
Everybody
says
calm
it
down.
sounds like excellent fiscal thinking.
Listen.
Yep.
So
you
you've
can
got your
use-
detractors and you've got your proponents.
Listen, you can invest in stocks or a Roth IRA. You can all do all that nonsense. But, Tom, when you bet on Betfred Sportsbook, the greatest sportsbook known to man, I know what my money is going to do, and that money will be winning.
Tom, we got a super chat. I don't know if you've seen it, but Justin says, investigate any
Justin's
team.
my guy.
Investigate any team besides Michigan, and you'll find the same thing. This is all because Ohio State blowhards crying about losing to Michigan. I'll let you start first, Tom.
No. I mean, Justin, look, there are a lot of people that are going to say that. And I know you're half kidding, half serious about this. But look, this story, I mean, when you really start digging into some of the things that have happened since this allegedly started in 2021, even the most subjective person, the biggest Michigan fan in the world would have to say, oh, boy. In 2020, Michigan lost. Forget losing to Ohio State, where for a second straight year they gave up 55 or more points. Okay, they gave up 59 points per game to Ohio State in 2019 and in 2020. 59 per game. Okay? They lost in 2020, pandemic, all that kind of thing. Everybody had to play by those rules. They not only lost to Ohio State, they not only lost to Penn State, they lost to Indiana. They lost to Michigan State. Well, ever since 2021, they are 24-1 in the Big Ten. 24-1. And against Ohio State, that the last 2 years had the highest scoring offense in college football. Best receiving group, arguably the best quarterback in C.J. Stroud, scoring 45 points every game. Those last 2 years since this scandal has alleged to have taken place, Ohio State's averaged 25 points per game against Michigan. Now, again, this isn't some Ohio State fan. This is a real deal. And I go back to that thing, and we'll talk about it later, about what should happen to Michigan. But this is the biggest story in sports, hands down, right now, and where this is going. This is not good. And I'd be saying the same damn thing if it was Ohio State. If they were cheating and they were doing something that everybody knew was against the rules and have since those rules were implemented in 1994, I would say the same thing about Ohio State. I'd say the same thing about Ohio University, my alma mater. Throw the book at them. If you can prove it, and there's a paper trail and there's a money trail from here to Ann Arbor on this Connor Stallions guy, if they can prove that anybody inside of that Michigan football coaching staff was made aware of the sign stealing that Connor Stallions is to have allegedly done, if they can tie this to anybody on that staff, all of them should be fired. Starting with the head coach, right on through every coordinator and staffer they have on the team.
Tom, is it going to look bad on the Big Ten's behalf when they fire everyone from Michigan and Michigan goes 1-11 every year but beats Ohio State by like 40 points like they have the last 2 years?
If they do it by the rules of the game, that's okay with me.
This is very similar to Houston's situation, isn't it? I mean, the Astros, I think that most people would agree that are within sports that there is a line in the sand of gamesmanship of being able to steal signs. If you're on the sideline and you're able to decipher signs in real time or during the game, then by all means, it feels like it's fair play to try to be able to use that to your advantage. It definitely feels like you cross the line when you're going to games, and not only are you going to games, but now you are trying to disguise yourself. And as soon as you start disguising yourself, clearly at that point, you are admitting to your own self and to everyone else that you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. So I've always been in the middle of this in regards to kind of like, whatever, they're stealing some signs, no big deal. But the more and more that has come out from it, it feels like they've gone a little bit over the line. And what you do with them, Tom, nothing's going to happen. Do I think that there's going to be repercussions that come from this? I think there will be very little repercussions that come from this because it's going to be way too hard, in my opinion, to prove anything, especially if you get the NCAA involved. However, for those that don't think that it matters, it actually helped Ohio State one year, in my opinion, because Michigan was playing a very tight ball game against Illinois back in 2022. I don't know if you remember this game or not.
I do.
And I don't know why it popped in my head when I was thinking of it this morning. But there was a situation where Illinois had them on the ropes.
Yes,
Illinois was up 17-13. They had the ball in the Michigan 33, and there was a play on fourth and but I don't know the exact down and distance right off the top of my head here. But there was a play in which Illinois tried to basically deceive and run a trick play, and it got blown up. And now whether or not that was because they stole a sign or not, it's hard to say.
Yep.
But those are the things that I could make the case that, you know what, that's where it does matter, is that if you are, without question, stealing signs premeditated ahead of time, if for those that think that it doesn't matter, then why do they do it? That's what I would ask. If Jim Harbaugh and the rest of the Michigan staff think that, it's not really that big of a deal, then why do you go do it?
Well, I always go back, and I know a lot of you guys roll your eyes because some of you, don't have it or maybe don't want to spend your extra money, if you have extra money at all these days, on having a subscription to This Athletic. But this story they did today, I mean, this was like, it's fascinating to the other people in that world. And one of the parts inside of it talked about, this is NCAA Manual 101 stuff. And just how brazen and in your face Michigan was basically saying to everybody, screw you. We're doing it. There were a lot of references made in this thing by coaches who say they could have pulled this off for years and never gotten caught. Could have. But the way, the arrogance they went about it to say, screw you, rules be damned. I am betting money. I'm going to disagree with you, and we will agree to disagree. The Big Ten is going to be forced to make the call on this deal. There is no way, if this stuff starts getting more and more and more and more, and we still have 4 weeks left of the regular season, there is no way the Big Ten Conference, which the Big Ten by and large, and there are certain cases here and there, but the Big Ten maybe more so than any other conference when it comes to sportsmanship, when it comes to the ethics, when it comes to the academics. They are the model conference in all of college sports. Doesn't mean they have the best football team every year. Doesn't mean they have the best basketball team every year. But when it comes to combining the athletics and the academics, without a doubt, the Big Ten is the premier conference in the country. They cannot allow Michigan to play in this Big Ten championship game. If they're able to prove, and they've already proven a lot. This isn't like these tickets that were bought by Connor Stallions. This isn't some rumor. He had tickets on each sideline for the game 2 weeks ago between Ohio State and Penn State. Now, do you have any idea? I was on StubHub thinking about going to that game. Do you have any idea how much tickets in the lower bowl at the 50-yard line were going for that game? And he had tickets on both sidelines at the 50. And then the story broke with his name in it. He's a no-show. I mean, come on. This article, it details TCU. And then it details Ohio State. Ohio State goes up against Georgia in the college football semis, puts 41 on Georgia, the back-to-back national champs, without their best receiver playing the final quarter of the game. They put 41 on Georgia. The story points out that TCU had caught wind that Michigan was doing this. And so in the college football playoff semifinal game, Sonny Dykes, the head coach at TCU, would send in a signal for a play, would then change the signal from the sideline to a different play, but not change the play. It would go back to the original play. TCU scored 51 points against Michigan. I'm not making this stuff up. This is serious business. And this doesn't even take into account the most important part of this whole thing, and that is players' safety. The danger of 18 to 22-year-old kids and what could happen to them if the other team knows what it is you're going to do. There is no way the Big Ten can allow Michigan if this continues to be proven. And all it needs is one or two little more pieces of evidence for this to be proven. And there's no way Tony Petitti and the Big Ten, commissioner, can let them play in the championship game of the Big Ten this year. There's no way. No chance. We'll find out if it happens.
I think what Trey said, though, is true. I think that I know two wrongs don't make a right, but you'd be foolish to think that there's no other teams in the NCAA that aren't doing this. Maybe not to the psychotic level as this guy, dressing up like other people, standing on the sidelines of opposing teams. Asterisks, don't know if that's true, but it appears it's true. I don't know if other people are wearing glasses with little cameras on the top of them. Again, what they're doing is psychotic. It's weird. But at the end of the day, you have to still prove it. You have to prove it. And I know that you'd be brain dead if you believe that nobody else on Michigan knew that this guy was doing this, right? Somebody has to know about it. But you do still have to prove it. You're right. This is a country where you still have to prove it.
You're right.
So if they find something, if it's like Brady where they got the texts, or if he plugged his phone into the hard drive at Michigan and they're able to find the video, then yeah, then it's over and you broke the rules and you got caught and it's over. But you can't preemptively suspend or punish this team for the actions of one man. And that's all it is right now. It's still one man.
That's
as psychotic,
exactly right.
As psychotic as this human being appears to be, it's still just one human being that's involved. That's it.
That's exactly right. There has to be a link between that guy and the football.
There has to be.
The coaching staff.
So the Big Ten can't suspend or not let Michigan play until they know for sure.
I agree.
There's video evidence of this guy standing right next to the defensive coordinator for Michigan during their playoff game against TCU, though. So that's where you lose.
And the game against Ohio State.
So clearly let's. I'm with you, Elliot. There's no doubt that nothing's probably going to happen to Michigan this year.
I agree with that.
Literally just because of the way our justice system works. Whether you like it or you don't, I've always said, and I continue to say, that you have to stand by the justice system of what this country is founded upon, which means that you are innocent until proven guilty. All signs point to guilty. Trust me. But as far as the, if anything has been proven within college athletics when it comes to governing bodies, they are not swift and they are not fast.
That's right.
And it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, in 4 years from now, somehow there's some stupid little retraction or some ban of something that happened to Michigan and they just take some wins away like it really
Kansas.
matters. Similar to Kansas. Very similar to Kansas. So I don't know. I guess the good news is, if you want to say there is good news, is that social media, in a way, if as much as kind of slander as social media gets, social media, without question, was the avenue and the medium that allowed this story to become mainstream, big, and Big J journalists started running after stories that people were breaking on the internet of pictures and all these things. And now, at least, if anything, it's going to curb their cheating, you would like to think. I mean, they're not going to be sending people out now when they're getting investigated. So at least they've stopped the initial issue. And it reminds me directly and exactly like the Houston Astros. Sign stealing is cool if you're doing it from second base. But you can't be stealing signs with video electronic cameras and then buzzing people and letting them know what pitch is coming. Same thing with Michigan. Yes, everyone steals signs in college football. But they're just not sending guys out in different uniforms and sending them out in different games and stealing them that way. And I don't know why we as humans think that those are two different things, but I would argue those are completely two different things.
What does it say that if the likely thing is that, Harbaugh knew and he's overseeing this and, he's got to take the blame and everything because he's overseeing his coaches, he's overseeing his staff, all these things, that the guy that should get in the most trouble, who should be the head coach, Jim Harbaugh, because once again, he's overseeing this whole thing, is that he will face the least amount of repercussions. Because if he gets in trouble, guess what happens to him? Leaves town, he goes coaches in the NFL. Yeah, his reputation's a little tarnished, but he just goes on back and go coaches the Raiders. They need a coach. They'll take him in a heartbeat. So the guy that perhaps maybe should be the most in trouble here is going to feel the fewest amount of repercussions.
You're exactly right. You're 100% correct. Connor Stallions, I mean, look, I think he's just doing what he was told.
He has to be, Tom.
And do I think he's an evil guy? I don't know Connor Stallions. I'm not going to sit here and judge if he's an evil guy. If somebody's paying your salary and they say, hey, I want you to go buy tickets to that football game over there, yeah, we really shouldn't do that, but bring your phone and, take some video.
Tom, if you love Michigan football your whole life, and Jim Harbaugh came to you and said, hey, I need you to do these things, you're 100% doing them. You add in the fact that Michigan was in the spot that they were in. They've been getting their tails kicked in by Ohio State for an extended period of time. They were desperate, Tom.
Yep.
They were desperate. And when desperate times call for desperate measures, and unfortunately, like it or not, we are all competitors. And the same reason that people took steroids in baseball, the same reason the Houston Astros cheated, and the same reason that college football programs paid players long before it was legal is because the reason that those things happen is because you're trying to gain a competitive advantage, because ultimately everyone in that sport and everyone in sports in general are competitors, and it just rose to a level to where it got a little ridiculous, and that's what happened.
Yep. Okay, we are way late for the locals here today. Are you not giving us a weather update because the sun is shining in beautiful Hamilton, Ohio today?
Yeah, I think we just do the ads today.
Let's do the ads.
Yeah, I think we're past the weather, but we still do have what do we have?
Power
today?
rankings. We have
Power
power
rankings.
rankings.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We got plenty of time here. What time is it here? We're good.
30 minutes. We got power rankings. We got top 5.
You guys aren't old enough. It just sucks to have to pull out a pair of glasses to see the watch.
I can't imagine that pain. Trace,
the
you're
guy
getting
with
there.
glasses.
There are worse things I can see. Lord, thank you. So I'm not going to, but it just.
Did you have good eyesight when you were younger?
Oh, I mean, like a hawk. Are you kidding me? Come on. They called me the hawk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chicago broadcaster called the Hawk.
Casey, please take it away. Get me out of this mess.
Yeah, so the Bengals report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with the suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and productivity.
You clown.
I don't know what this is, but visit encore.tech. The path to innovation
Productivity.
begins here.
It's productivity.
And then we have a new premium
Where does it
alkaline
begin?
water here in Hamilton, Ohio. Pawnee Water uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, the best tasting water in the world. You can visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. And for me,
That arm's got to be tired. You got to be feeling it.
it's the pH level. It's not a 7, it's not a 9, it's a perfect 8. Reed, what do you like about this water?
I was drinking some Pawnee last night, and last night we let the Pawnee talk. Don't throw that. Don't throw that across.
I got it.
It's the natural limestone filtration. Oh! That's why I was a catcher. Yeah, for me, it's the natural limestone filtration. It's also the involuntary response I have when I taste the water. It simply tastes that good. Watch.
Oh.
Is that refreshing? Elliot?
Yes. Can I have the microphone, please?
Oh, yeah. Here you go.
I can't wait. By the way, I am waiting to toss this back with all that computer stuff over there. I am pumped to knock everything off that desk with this microphone. And we're going to do it. We're too far into the bit not to do it. Pawnee, yeah, the water's great. For me, it's the smoothness. It goes down the gullet nice and easy. It's not like that other water that you're going to drink. It almost feels like that water's clunky, like there's something in there. Like there's bacteria almost, like they're trying to poison you. Not Pawnee water.
That's right.
It uses limestone filtration, natural limestone. It's
Yep.
not the fake limestone.
Not lemon pebbles.
It's not. That's silly. It's not that. Drink the water. It's the best water known to man. So now we're gonna throw this microphone back.
We have a new
yeah,
member.
by the way, we have a new member.
We have a new
We have
member.
a new member.
Yosh.
Josh.
Welcome to Nutcutter Nation.
I wanna
Welcome.
see
We appreciate you joining.
Hang on. Get in the camera angle at least.
Yeah, you have to
know?
get
I'm trying to stay away from the actual expensive stuff here.
This is so.
Get it up high. Get it up high. There we go.
Hey!
Opa!
Opa!
Easy.
So yeah, for the rest of the show, we have a couple things to do. We're gonna do our power rankings in both college and the NFL. I've got a top 5. We are gonna have box lunch that'll be hosted by
Elliot.
Ellie Rue. So we got about an hour and a half left of this show. We broke down a lot of things. Anything else? Any other housekeeping things that we have to get to? Tomorrow we'll have Marty on the show.
We'll do stink list tomorrow. How about that?
All right.
We still
Switch it over
why
to
don't
you,
we do
Casey.
Stink List
Casey,
today?
let's switch it over to you.
yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, we'll do stink list tomorrow because we still got a lot to do today.
I
So-
want stink list. Damn.
That's okay. It's all right. I need a little extra time. How about that? Need a little extra time
He's
due
got
to
to
the trade
perfect the
deadline.
stink list.
Yeah, gotta perfect
He's
it.
concocting a smell.
Wait a minute. Are we not doing a stink list because you don't have it ready, or because we don't have time? Because we got plenty of time.
Well, we still got to do lots of stuff today, Tom. I don't think we
Well,
have
what's
lots of time.
stuff. Our power rankings take 5 minutes.
Well, let's get right into it then. How about that?
You didn't answer
So
my question.
so we do have time. Do we have time or we don't have time?
I don't know. Let's get through our power rankings and we'll see where we're at.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Tom, you want to start us off?
Start us off. Where are we starting? In the pros or in college?
That's up to you.
Let's start in the pros. I've got the Eagles and the Ravens, top 2 teams, in my opinion, by far, through 8 games. Dolphins 3, Lions 4. I have the Bengalis coming in at 5. No Kansas City Chiefs on there for me.
Was that hard for you to do, Tom?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Because, I'm a big Mahomes guy, believer in Mahomes. They are what they are. But when watching them play this year, and I know their record is better than the Bengals, it's the same as the Ravens, Dolphins, Lions. I just look at them this year and I say to myself, are you a top 5 team if you've lost 2 and fill in the blank? Who they've lost to this year?
Lost to the Broncos, and they've lost to the Lions.
Yeah.
Who's in your top 5?
Okay. There you go.
Fair enough.
It's a good top 5.
It's fair enough.
Stepping out of the box a little.
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
All
bring
right.
It, bring it over here,
Who's
Case.
next?
Bring it over here, Case. This is my top 5. You know my take. I did move the Eagles up to number 1 because I don't think that there's anybody playing better football than them in the NFL right now. The Ravens snuck into the 3 spot. Once again, they're just a very, very good team. It's hard for me to imagine the Kansas City Chiefs not winning the West. It's hard for me to imagine the Kansas City Chiefs not playing home playoff games. It's hard for me to imagine the Kansas City Chiefs not winning playoff games. So for that reason, I still think that they are the best team in the AFC. The Jaguars have won 5 in a row after starting 1-2, so they're now 6-2. I've got a couple of these these records wrong. That's my behalf because I put these in. The Jaguars are number 4. And listen, the 49ers still making the top 5. They've lost 3 games in a row, but we can't say a team is one of the best teams we've ever seen just 3 weeks ago, and then they lose 3 games in a row and just completely write them off the face of the earth. They've played a good Bengals team who played their best game of the year. They played a feisty Browns team. They're going to find their way back to being a double-digit win team. They're going to find their way back to winning a playoff game. I still think the 49ers are very, very good.
Okay.
I like it. That's a good top
Zebra?
5. Zebra time.
Are the Browns on this list again?
No Browns. No
Okay.
Browns.
All right. Okay.
They lost. Top 5. Not a bunch of new stuff here except for the bottom. Eagles, obviously best record in the NFL, best team in the NFL through 9 weeks, whatever we've been through. They still haven't had their bye yet. The Eagles haven't.
No.
That's wild.
All those teams with 8 games have not had a bye yet.
That's wild. Chiefs, I still think the Chiefs are damn good. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL. So they can lose, honestly, 3 in a row more. So they could be 6-5 right now. I'd still have number 2. Because at the end of the day, they will be playing for an AFC championship game. That's just a fact.
Who?
The Kansas City Chiefs will be playing for another AFC in the AFC championship game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I have no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
Unless Mahomes gets hurt.
Okay.
In which case that team plummets to irrelevant. Ravens are good. I try to not count the Ravens because I still don't believe in the offense a ton, even though every statistic that goes against my point. But Ravens are damn good. Lamar Jackson's playing at an MVP level. I think he could win the MVP this year if they were to keep this up. Jaguars have been slept on by me and by just about everybody through the first 3 weeks of the season. They are now 6-2. And if I'm going to be honest with you, there's still a solid chance they get that 1 seed in the AFC, like Reed said. Number 5, it's the Titans. Because when they have Will Levis, Tom, that's a legit team.
No doubt.
They're able to use DeAndre Hopkins. They're able to use Derrick Henry properly. You're not putting too much pressure on Henry's back. You're able to throw the ball around the field. I love the Titans. The Titans' defense has always been okay. Mike Vrabel, defensive guy. I love it. Listen, the Titans aren't bad. They can still make the postseason. They can still make it with
Yes,
Will
they can.
Levis. With Will Levis, top 5 team, Titans.
All right. So we moved on to college.
We're waiting on your stink
Stink
list.
list.
I'm assuming Trace doesn't have a top 5.
Trace, what are your thoughts
just
on
want
their
Sam,
list?
Trace?
Their lists are pretty solid. I mean, I don't understand how the Titans can even be in the top 5, but I think that's more of a
Well,
bit than
Will
anything.
Levis.
Obviously, that's just
Because
Elliott trying to be
put it-
funny.
Yeah, you put a
I
caveat.
put it in the caveat. They
Elliott's
had Will
Mr.
Levis.
Funny Guy.
not a funny guy.
Interesting.
Very
Really,
serious.
really wild to me, Tom, that you have the Bengals in your top 5 and Reed Mouse does not. That I would
was
have not
wild.
had that.
That
I would
was
have not-
wild.
I would have not had that on my bingo card.
I need to see the Bengals play one more complete game to put them in that top 5.
Fair point.
I think that they are Super Bowl contenders, maybe more so than some of those teams in that top 5. But I need to see them play one more complete
A lot of people in the chat are saying you're a Chiefs fan over a Bengals fan.
People give me crud because I give Patrick Mahomes a lot of credit because he's the best quarterback I've ever seen. People give me a lot of crap because I give Trevor Lawrence a lot of credit because when I watch him play football, he's very, very good. People give me crap because I like the Ravens. People give me crap because I like the Steelers. I'm just trying to be as unbiased as I possibly can while still being biased towards the Bengals. So it's a weird tightrope that I've got going on.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. College?
All right, Tom, you're up first.
Well, I'm stepping out of the box again a little bit here.
You disagree with Herb Street.
Let me say from the beginning, and make no mistake, please make sure you hear what I'm saying. I'll say it when I come back on camera. So here's mine. Georgia won. They're still the defending champs. I know you're not supposed to count that. They're the defending champs, 2-time defending champs. Buckeyes, we know their deal. Florida State, big win over LSU, massacred that team. They beat Duke. They got a nice team. Washington beat Oregon. Oregon actually has a loss. They're 7-1. But look, the omission there is clearly Michigan. And let me say for the record, the reason I'm leaving them off, I'm going to make sure they get cleared of all this stuff before I put them back on. I believe the eye test, it's the 111th ranked schedule in the country. But today, if I had to bet money, and I'm not a gambler, if today on the field I had to bet who would win the national championship, I think Michigan has the best team.
Whoa.
Nice.
So I'm not just some homer. I'm not a homer.
And they'd win it because they're cheating, though.
Well, maybe.
They'd win it because they have
They're
their
the
signs
good players and good cheaters. Go ahead.
Yeah, you come over to this side of the room because of our college football takes. Everyone
right.
knows that.
That's
Listen,
right.
Tom, who's the highest authority? Who's the highest authority?
On college, you are.
I would say college
You're
football
a college football guy.
Correct.
Or as
And-
Jerry Naron used to say, you're a college football guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you might notice there's an omission of the Bluffton Beavers, even though that they've won 2 straight games by 30-plus points. You might notice that there's an omission of the Miami Redhawks, despite beating the best team in Ohio by 30 points. But listen, when I hear the College Football Playoff Committee talk, I bow to them. So my top 5
Wow.
is the exact same as the College Football Committee
agree.
because no one is better at their job in all of sports than the College Football Committee. Kirk Herbstreit and Lee Corso and all those guys that get together and they make this top 5 rankings. They've got a perfect system. And, that's why it is. Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington. The exact same as the College Football Playoff Committee because who am I? Just some sheep boy from Hamilton to make a power rankings. I got to bow down to the College Football Playoff.
I think McAfee gets a vote this year.
Yeah,
I think
Mac-
they
that's true.
give him
That
one.
is true. The Bear.
And
the
here's
Bear gets one.
And here's my favorite part. I think the Bear gets one.
He's
Here's
at
my-
Fox now, right?
The CEO of Home Depot.
My favorite part about college football is that you don't play for the games. You don't play for the fans. You play for the 12 angry men and Kirk Herbstreit in that room. You play for their opinion.
Correct.
Because
They're
their
eating
opinion is
Chick-fil-A.
literally the only thing that is Ohio State #1 this week, sure. But if he gets diarrhea, if Herbstreit and the boys get diarrhea next week and they're upset coming into that meeting, they're going to change it to Georgia because they don't feel too good.
Diarrhea does equal in being upset towards Ohio State.
That's right. So it's just
One-to-one
their
tracking.
opinion. Let's give mine in because mine's going to be really good here. Number one, we have Georgia.
God.
Number one, we have Georgia because Georgia's still a 2-time national championship. And if I'm honest, I'm going to crown them again because that's what college football is. It's just the same teams winning over and over again. So shout out Georgia. Number 2, Florida State, the Seminoles. Haven't watched a game of theirs, but you know what? 8-0 sounds good to me. Michigan. If Michigan is able to cheat, if the NCAA is not going to punish them at all, Michigan is still a top 4 team and a playoff team.
Without
no
a doubt.
doubt.
No doubt about it. I said they
about
were
it.
the best team.
It's like a superpower they have.
It is.
It is. And number 4 and 5 is where we get a little bit interesting here. We have Elder High
Not
School
really.
coming in at number 4. Now, Elder's had a tough season, a couple tough losses to a couple of teams from out of state. They got blown out by Moeller, asterisk, because Moeller doesn't have a home field. They shouldn't even be allowed to play the
They have a
sport, to be honest.
sign stealing scandal too.
Yeah, they do. They
That's
do.
true.
So Elder High School, number 4, I think they sneak into the playoff. And number 5, we have the best team in Ohio. That's Ohio University. Tom has proclaimed that to them. They are the best team the state of Ohio has ever seen. They're 6-3 on the year, and in the best conference in the world, as told by Trace and Tom, the MAC. The MAC is the toughest conference in football. You're always seeing those guys compete for a national championship. Ohio's had a great year after a couple bad losses in a row now. There you go, top 5.
Who did the Elder Panthers play this week?
They play.
They play. Who do they play, or who do they play?
No, playing this coming week.
Lakota West, the Firebirds.
The Firebirds.
Who
If
are on
they
a pretty
win that
good
game-
roll right now.
If they win that game and our Hamilton Big Blue upset Princeton, we got Altiora versus the Big Blue next week.
And if Elder or Hamilton were to win that, they would then play New Miami in the state semifinal.
You know,
I'm told that's a home game for New Miami.
why do you keep coming back to beating up on New Miami?
I'm not beating up on them.
You are.
I just said they're in the state semifinal.
Well, they're not there yet, but they're knocking on the door.
They are. They are.
Are you going to their game this weekend?
Who, Elders?
No, New Miami.
I don't believe they made the postseason.
They did not make the postseason.
Oh, I thought they did. Okay.
No, they lose every week by 50. Casey, it looks like we have some time for the stink
We do.
list.
Let's break it out, Case.
Let's break it out.
Let's break it out. Time for Casey's stink list. We do this every week. We got to get Rumpke to sponsor this.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do, Tom. And this week's special edition of the Stink List, before I reveal anything on accident, here we go.
Well, before you
All right.
reveal anything on accident, the Hamilton Big Blue would hammer Elder.
Well, duh.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well,
All right,
duh.
go ahead.
Yeah.
We're hard nosed.
So just like previous weeks, I started to reveal the Stink List to you all in order.
Okay.
And this week we start with nauseating. We got our bottom feeders here. Commanders have now made it to one of the worst teams in the league after trading away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Vikings, I think they're pretty much done without Kirk Cousins. They're also one of the worst teams. Yeah, Josh Jobs. Whatever. Titans, I got to see more from Will Levis before I get them out nauseating. I still think they're one of the most irrelevant teams in the league, but a lot of good things. I saw a lot of good things with him and DeAndre Hopkins. I like that a lot. Moving on to the next part of this list, the stench list. These teams, again, they have no hope whatsoever. They're gonna make a push for the wild card spots, but not gonna have a chance in the long run. These teams all have just a glaring weakness, a glaring issue to their team. One's not being able to win meaningful games. Some are just having the worst offense I've ever seen. Others don't have quarterbacks anymore. You get the point.
And then there's the Chargers.
Yeah, who never had a quarterback.
They have a combination of all those things. I don't know what's wrong with them. So they're in the stench list. Then we go to the teams that stink this year.
Yes, the Cowboys stink.
Cowboys, they stink.
Okay, it's a big league game this weekend now.
They can only beat up teams that stink or worse, and they blow them out. So they look really good, and people get super hyped on them. People love Dak Prescott. But he always turns the ball over when it matters most. Falcons, I was super high on them. They've disappointed me. Desmond Ridder has not been a game manager, and the Jets, they just hang around. I don't know what it is. I feel like they're going to end up being one of those teams that are 9-8, sneak in, and we'll see Aaron Rodgers back. I like the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, but without him, they stink. And then moving on to the odorless category. These teams, they don't have a stink. They don't have anything wrong with them necessarily. They'll make it to the playoffs.
Did you watch the Lions in Baltimore?
Yeah, I did. But did you see the Lions versus the Raiders?
It's apples and oranges.
I don't know. They're gonna make it. They're gonna win their division. They're probably gonna have a whole playoff game.
I agree with you on there. It's a brutal division. But go ahead.
I don't think they stink as bad as the other teams below them.
You think the Lions are better than the Cowboys?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
And then we go to the fresh category. These three teams here, they have a chance at winning a Super Bowl. They're some of the best teams in the league. San Francisco with Chase Young is probably the best defensive line we've ever seen in the NFL. Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes. Lamar, excellent when he's healthy. And then we make it to the top of the list. These teams are the Super Bowl contending teams. The Bills, if we beat them, man, Bengals all the way.
That's a good point.
They're probably the best team in the league. I just have them a smidge below the Bengals because the Bengals are actually the best team in the league. Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. And then Eagles, I mean, they're the best team in the NFC by far. And you might be wondering, we're missing a couple teams.
I only count 31, yeah.
We're missing a couple teams.
Who's missing?
We're missing two teams, actually,
30.
Tom. We're missing two teams.
Two.
And they have made it to the putrid list. The Browns, they're still down there, the very bottom. And the Raiders, I mean, they're right there with the Browns. They just are pitiful. Pitiful franchise. They're never going to win any games anytime soon. They can't figure themselves out. A new team makes it to the putrid list, Tom.
All right, everybody take a deep breath and just look at this for a second.
Deep breath.
I want to make sure. I want to make sure that I have this right. So you have the Bills ranked ahead of Kansas City, Baltimore, and San Francisco.
Yeah, they're right behind the Bengals at the best team in the league.
Correct.
If we beat the best team in the league, I mean, there's no debate. The Bengals deserve to be at the top. But
which the Bengals have done 4 out of the last 5 weeks.
Right, that's right. They just keep proving all the doubters wrong, Tom. They keep beating the best teams in the league.
That's right.
Every
Rams
single
were
week.
the best team in the league before we played them. Cardinals, all these teams they were the best teams in the league, and then they faced the mighty Cincinnati Bengals, and they drop on down. The Bills have another opportunity. They're the best team in the league right now, but can they beat the second best team in the Bengals?
That's right. Thoughts, Tom?
Well, look, I mean, you've got your bit here with Cleveland, and we argue this about Cleveland.
It's not a bit, Tom.
All right, okay. Okay, you're right. It's not a bit.
They lost.
I mean,
they lost in the worst possible way imaginable.
Checked, did they not play the Bengals this year?
It was raining.
It was, yeah. They played them.
It was pretty cold too.
I don't know if they actually necessarily played them. I mean,
then.
The Bengals were out there. They were out there. I don't know if they played, though.
Well, they were out there.
They were out there.
They got killed.
The Bengals are
by the Brownies.
I can't argue with that, but
You were starting to say what?
I was saying
they got killed.
The Bengals are a humble team, Tom. Listen, where other teams like to win a lot of games and be at the front of different media outlets as power rankings and, oh, look how great the Bengals look. The Bengals are like, listen, we know what we got. We can win every game that we try to play, but let's just keep it low key, keep everyone fresh, get everyone healthy. So they start 1-3 every year,
okay.
Or they start 0-2 every year.
Okay.
And then they're like, all right, now it's go time, and then they rattle off 10 wins in a row. So that's why the Bengals do what they consistently do. That's what we saw. That was the Bengals actually playing probably against the 49ers. They probably played at, 35-40% of their capabilities.
Yeah.
Mouse Cop wants to know, when are you and Casey going to have a serious discussion on this show?
That is, whenever we talk college football, that's when we get very serious.
Well, Reed's about to get really serious with his top 5 list, so I don't know.
True.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Is Deshaun Watson going to play again?
That's a good question.
No.
I don't know. He's medically cleared every week. Just doesn't want to.
They just walk in there and go like, "Hey, Deshaun, you want to play this week? You're loud."
No,
and he's like, "I don't know about that."
That's not the deal, and I'm not a Deshaun Watson guy.
Right? You claim
the guy's shoulder hurts. It hurts. What can I tell you? He's a quarterback. You have to throw the ball. They said there's swelling in there. The guy's shoulder hurts.
There's a joke in there, Tom.
I know that. I'm well aware. All right, let's go. Top 5.
All right, top 5. Bring it on over here, Case.
Okay. Here we go.
All right, guys. So we've been talking about the Bengals. Everyone's like, oh, the Bengals are all the way back. Are they as good as they were the last few years? And I started thinking, like, listen, we are in an unprecedented time in Bengals fandom to where we are like in this golden era, right? And I start thinking back as we keep meandering our way through this era and say, who is most responsible? Who is most responsible for what the Bengals have been able to accomplish the last 2 years and what they'll accomplish going forward? So without further ado, here is the top 5 people responsible for the current state of the Cincinnati Bengals, and that is a championship contender. Coming in at number 5, you got to go with the head coach. Listen, Zach Taylor came in 2019. He didn't win a whole lot of games. He didn't win a whole lot of games the year after that either. But over the past few years, he has built a certain chemistry. That's what he's always getting acclaim for. He built a certain chemistry in the locker room.
Culture.
Yeah. I think he should get more credit for his play call. I think it's been very good throughout his tenure here.
Baltimore thinks so too. Go ahead.
Solid start to the list, Reed. Solid start.
Yeah, number 5, it is Zach Taylor. So you're saying who could be more responsible for winning games than a head coach? Well, if you know me, I like myself a quarterback. And Joe Burrow. Ever since the Bengals drafted Joe Burrow.
He's number 4?
Number 4, Tom. Think about how good this list is going to be. Joe Burrow comes in at number 4 because when he was drafted, he was sitting in his parents' house over there in Athens Plains, Ohio, and just a humble guy, right? He's got a certain swagger to him, and he just shows up.
He's got drip.
Yep. He's got drip. He's Kid Cudi's best friend. So, Tom, you know Kid Cudi?
I don't know Kid Cudi, but that's okay. I'm sure he's cool.
He's Joe's best friend.
Okay.
So, Joe Burrow comes in at number 4. Thank you, Joe. We love you. So, who is better than Joe Burrow? Well, coming in at number 3, you might remember certain moments as when the tide started to turn. So, coming in at number 3 is Urban Meyer. You remember that Thursday night football game against the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Leader of men.
Urban's kicking kickers. He's
Josh Lambo.
He's MFing kickers.
Go
all
to
these
court.
guys, right? And he's coming right in. And without Urban Meyer just being an inept coach at the NFL level, the Bengals never get to where they are at this stage. So thank you, Urban, for your service. We appreciate that Thursday night football game.
Bring it back.
Bring him back. Coming in at number 2. All right. Before we had, or I guess it was when we had Joe Burrow, he was hurt. You might remember a Monday night football game where the Pittsburgh Steelers came in, and they were the best team in the NFL. And who broke the Pittsburgh Steelers? Ryan Finley. Look at that smile. You remember the Ryan Finley game on Monday Night Football? We were still meandering our way through COVID. Bars were only open till 10 o'clock. You had to leave whatever place you were watching the game. You had to go home for some weird reason. But Ryan Finley, we will never forget your service. You are the best fourth-round pick in the history of the NFL.
Yep. That's why you don't trade fourth-round picks for Chase Young.
That's right.
Damn right, Tom. He's got the point.
Thank you.
He's the number 2 reason why the Bengals are where they're at today. But coming in At number one, it's exactly who you think it is. It's Drew Sample. Drew Sample is the key to success. Tom thinks I'm making fun of him. Seriously, go on X.com and see who's Drew Sample's biggest fan. I should start tweeting him every day. Good game, Drew, because he deserves it. You get Drew Sample the ball in open space. We don't score 31 points on Sunday without that drop from Drew Sample. That's a fact. That is a fact. Every time that, you see Joe Burrow scrambling around, who's he going to get it to? Downfield to Jamar Chase? No. Over the middle to T. Higgins? No. Get it to Drew Sample, DS89 for a 3-yard completion. That's what gets this offense cooking. Thank you, Drew Sample. I hope that you are on the Bengals when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60, because you're the best tight end in the league. I wouldn't trade a single person in the NFL for Drew Sample right now, Tom. Thank you, Drew Sample. We love you here.
By the way, Drew dropped his only target last week.
He
On
set it
purpose.
up. He's set up, right. What are you talking about?
You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I do, by the way, I do have a cherry on top. That was a great list, Reed. Very good list. I sent it to Casey. Last night. I found it, and it was brilliant. It basically depicts what would happen if Aaron Rodgers came back to the Jets this season, Tom. And
What would happen?
Yeah, so if Aaron Rodgers if he's able to come back, if he's able to fight through the pain, this video is almost a shot-by-shot prediction of what's to come.
Okay, let's check it out.
So here we go. This is Cherry on Top, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
Yes, look at that.
Perhaps
Hot
the
Fudge
best
Sundae.
coffee place of all time and
Yeah,
ice
it is,
cream.
right there. I'm there every day.
Every day.
Multiple times.
So this is a game that happened a long time ago, but this is basically what you're going to see when Aaron Rodgers comes back. Steps up to throw, drops a dime in there, Tom. Right? Clock's a ticking. You got to get him there. How are you going to get him there? You're going to pick his ass up, and you're going to run down the field because he's unable to run. That's what you're going to see in New York this year during the playoffs in the wild card round. They're going to pick Rodgers up, and they're just going to run his ass down the field.
It's Brian Leftwich, I think.
Oh.
You're right.
That was Maction, too.
The Thundering Herd. That's Mac football.
Is
buddy.
Leftwich still a
Real
coordinator?
men.
Real men.
In Jacksonville, he might
Is
be.
Brian Leftwich still a coordinator? He was like a big candidate for a head coaching job.
Yeah,
for
he
a
was in
minute.
Tampa with
He
Brady.
He was in Tampa with
That's what
Brady.
it was.
Is he still around? They're digging
firing
it up.
it up. I'm pulling
They're
it up.
digging it up.
He is.
You can book it. He's somewhere.
He is the offensive. No, he is not the offensive coordinator.
Is he out of the league? That is why you do what Luke Fickell does, and that Luke Fickell did, everybody. You realize there's shelf lives in this game. It's a not-for-long league, and he picked his time right. You got to give Luke Fickell all the credit in the world.
right.
He picked this spot about as beautifully
right.
as one could. He got the best
right.
class in UC history to come
Yes.
through at one time, and he's seen the writing on the wall. Satterfield had no chance coming into this situation this year.
You're right. In the Big 12 and the MAC, very similar conferences. A lot of competition similarities, a lot of Final Four similarities as well. So, yeah, I agree.
I have some breaking news.
Regarding which team?
We need
the
music for
Falcons.
this if we're going to have this from now on.
The Falcons have officially benched Desmond Ritter in favor of Taylor Heineke.
No.
That's very brutal for me and Spur.
Is that because he's a really bad quarterback?
Because you must have him in fantasy league.
I mean, nothing says a great quarterback like being benched for Taylor Heineke.
Boomer Esiason was screaming on the pregame show the other day, long before the game ever started. Said he can't understand why they haven't gone to Taylor Heineke. Won a lot of big games for the Commanders, I think.
Nice caveat.
I want to just circle back to something we've touched on already.
Is it Drew Sample related?
It is.
Good.
Because, the easiest thing to do for the elitist of the world is to pat the guy who's going really good on the back, talk him up. Hey, attaboy, you're my guy. And then to beat down the common man. Trace, you have known Reed longer than anybody in this room. Did you know when you brought him aboard that he would be the kind of guy that's talking up the Patrick Mahomes? Boy, that's hard to do. Yet beating down the Drew Samples of the world.
I don't know how I'm beating him down.
I did not know I was going to get the Reed Mouse with as many bits and clever things as
Clever.
Clever.
I think they are clever. I think that they are clever. There's really no way for Reed to lose in this situation. If Drew Sample plays poorly, then he gets to continue his same song and dance. But if Drew Sample catches a touchdown, and by God, that probably will never happen, but if it does happen, I can't wait for the day to see what Reed Mouse does.
Drew Sample has played 5 years in the league, Tom. On the active
Second round pick.
Second round pick, 5 years in the league. Quarterbacks, Andy Dalton, Joe Burrow. He has 1 touchdown and 400 receiving yards. We're not utilizing him enough, Tom. We're not getting him the ball enough.
Open space.
What does everyone say about Drew Sample? Terrible blocker, great receiver. Let's get him out. Let's get him out in open space. Let's run some end arounds to him.
I would love that.
Let's do some cute running back draws, some tight end draws. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if there's ever a team that's capable of calling that play, it's them.
Correct.
That's true.
Do you ever watch a play? I said this on Twitter after the final play of the third quarter against the 49ers. We did like 2 fake reverses and then had a pass downfield. Do you ever see a play, and I love Zach Taylor, but you just go, there's no way Zach Taylor drew that one up. There's no way. It is such a unique play that you're just like, there's no way our fearless leader drew that one up. Someone got in his ear and told him that play.
Boy, there you go, beating him down.
I love Zach Taylor.
Just like a hammer.
I think you should relinquish culture building duties and just take over full-time play calling duties. That's what he's good
How
at.
many more games are you going to be on the Irv Smith train to see? Let's give him a chance. Just
I'm
curious.
I'm on for 2 more.
2 more games?
I am.
2 more.
What is here's an honest question, Tom. If Irv Smith was a productive tight end, he currently has 50 yards this year and no touchdowns. There's 10 games left.
Oh, he
in the
missed 3 games.
Okay, but I'm just saying, he's got 50 yards right now and 0 touchdowns. For him to be a productive tight end, at the end of the year, his stats look like...
Well, I would say he would average probably 3 catches a game for 45 yards, somewhere in that neighborhood, and maybe every third game a touchdown.
Okay, so somewhere around...
I don't think it's unreasonable.
350 yards, 3-4 touchdowns
For the rest of the season.
for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we may not even know by later today if he's ever going to get that chance. We don't know. They're going to stick with him.
Is there not anyone on the that's just I know that rosters are tight in the NFL, but do they have to make a cut to the tight end room?
I think by designating the guy you said earlier they did, by making a roster move. It doesn't have to be a tight end.
Well, I know that it doesn't need to be a tight end. The question I'm asking though is there anyone else between the 4 of you that know much more about this roster than I do? Is there any chance that it's not a tight end? Is what I'm getting at. Is there someone else on this roster that you could say, okay, we could cut them and give these guys a longer chance or a longer leash?
I think it's likely that they'll keep all the guys on and kind of have a, give them equal playing time kind of thing and see who shines the most. So, yeah, I think they're going to keep all the guys at this very moment and not cut anybody at this moment.
But that doesn't mean, keep in mind, that doesn't mean they have to be active for the game on Sunday night.
Right.
You've got to cut it down. You got a 53-man roster. You got a practice squad. You activate, 47, right? For every game?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So you have 6 guys plus a third quarterback, designated third quarterback, that is not active on any particular week. All right, we got to roll. Marty Brennaman joins us tomorrow. World Series Game 5 tonight. Can the Diamondbacks stay alive? We'll talk about the Steelers and the Titans. They will be playing tomorrow night. And so much more. Who knows what else? Right, Casey? Who knows?
Who knows? Not me.
Gentlemen, have a good rest of your day. Any action real quick tonight, Zebra?
I'll be giving my plays on Box Lunch. If you'd like to see...
I was getting ready to ask, is that coming up next?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Well,
it
then
is.
let's get it rolling.
If you'd like to see my picks, tune into Box Lunch. They're winners. I went 8-2.
And your charger is over here if you need it. Are you
Okay.
moving to the seat or you want me to bring it back to
No,
you?
I'm going to come up to that seat.
Okay. All right. Well, you kept it warm for you.
Are
Thank
D-backs
you.
done,
All right.
Tom? Are D-backs done?
No, they're going to win tonight.
They're
They're
DUN
gonna win
done.
tonight. All right. Here we go. Box lunch right now.
They're
See you tomorrow.
FIN finished.
I must admit, I didn't think much of this show the first time I laid eyes on it. Seemed like a bunch of stiffs wasting nice
Worst trade
microphones.
of all time happened back in 1803. Go ahead. Napoleon Bonaparte traded the Louisiana Purchase